Okay. Kat Ross, followed by Yadi, followed by Marla Tosher. Ms. Ross, you have
Hi.
2 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to start by saying that I was born in Pasadena. I'm representing Showing Up for Racial Justice, and I want to talk about what other people are saying about ShotSpotter. The AP and the ACLU both say that the evidence is not objective. The audio gets sent to human analysts who change their judgments about whether the shot was fired, how many shots were fired, from what kind of weapon, based on the request of law enforcement after the fact. The ACLU says that it's not effective. A number of cities have stopped using it after determining it creates too many false positives and false negatives. In Chicago, 88% of alerts found no incidents involving a gun. Maybe you don't trust Chicago's reporting. This is similar to what San Diego police say in their own PowerPoint statistics. Of all the alerts in a 2-year period, only 15% were connected to gun-related crimes. The ACLU says that when it sends police on all of these false alarms, it results in more officers' stops and pat-downs in the areas that it's used. So the effect is that it increases racial profiling in those areas. Longitudinal studies over 17 years found in large metropolitan counties that it had no significant impact on firearm-related homicides or arrest outcomes.
20 seconds.
The city of Charlotte, North Carolina, installed in 2012 and then ended its contract shortly after, saying the technology did not help the police find anything new. And this is reinforced by Police Chief Magazine. So maybe you don't believe in the ACLU, maybe you do believe in Police Chief Magazine, which says that services like ShotSpotter replace traditional calls for service and do so less efficiently and at greater monetary cost to the
Ms. Ross, your time has expired.
I didn't.
Oh.
Ms. Ross, if you could wrap up your comments, your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
The next speaker is Yadi, followed by Marla Tosher. Anne Marie Nee is not in the Zoom meeting as yet. So Yadi, go ahead.
Yes, gun violence is harmful and requires multifaceted solutions. ShotSpotter is expensive, unproven, and a drain on city resources. The speaker before me quoted Police Chief Magazine saying that the results are very tepid and the cost is really high and taxpayers were going to be questioning the logic behind the expense. The DOJ and Redwood City conducted a field evaluation of ShotSpotter that included a survey of 27 police officers on the effectiveness in ShotSpotter, and 100% said that ShotSpotter would not increase the likelihood that a victim of a shooting will survive. 92% said that ShotSpotter will not increase the likelihood that someone would be arrested, and 88% said that ShotSpotter will not make them more effective when handling shot-fired incidents. In another field evaluation with San Bernardino County Sheriff, a patrol deputy said the system missed an officer-involved shooting, and after that, the guys lost confidence. I submitted a comment with more of those kind of quotes from law enforcement. In a 7-city sample using ShotSpotter, false alarm rates ranged from 51 to 88%. False alarms are so problematic and resource intensive that Pasadena PD in 2000 reported, quote, unnecessary calls for service due to false burglar alarms have grown into a tremendous problem. Alarms serve as a useful deterrent to crime. However, the amount of resources Pasadena police spends responding to false alarm calls every year has become intolerable.
30 seconds.
Has struggled with false alarms for the past several years and are draining patrol resources and creating a significant backlog. Furthermore, ShotSpotter itself admits that it's not useful when someone is shot with a silencer close to the ground, at close range, in a car, indoors, or with ambient noises. What is the rush? Involve Community Police Oversight Commission, put out a bid. Let's put resources to proactively address the underlying issues. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next.
Marla Tosher. Ms. Tosher?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Marla Tauscher. So Lieutenant Grisoff was asked to come back with answers to a lot of questions. And frankly, I didn't hear a single answer to any of the questions that were posed to him during the Public Safety Committee meeting or subsequently in a series of letters. The one factoid that he did mention, though, that was fascinating is that no one else in LA County is using this technology. That means that 87 cities in LA County have passed on this technology. If that's not a red flag, I'm not really sure what is. I need to correct some inaccuracies in some of the statements as well. Outgoing city manager Steve Mermel really tried to downplay the court admissibility of evidence aspect of this, but that really contradicts the company's own statements. It devoted a good 2/3 of its press release to the admissibility of its evidence, the reliability, and the accuracy. So it's ridiculous to try to downplay that. Also, in this case, you really can't shoot the messenger like you've been trying to do all along, because I'm using the company's own words. You know, their product is dismal by their own admission. In the 20 years, they've been in business for more than 20 years, and they say that they've had 190 cases in which their court admissible forensic reports were admitted. 190 cases in 20 years over 20 states. That's failure. That's insane. I mean, if this stuff isn't used for evidence, what is it for? They also mentioned that they've survived some court challenges, 11 court challenges in those 20 years to the reliability of their evidence. How many times has their stuff been challenged and not
25 seconds.
up to court muster? Also, they mentioned in their press release, first of all, I have to correct, Lieutenant Grisoff said that they had contracted an independent study. It was not. They hired Edgewood and paid them money. That was not an independent study. Another thing they revealed in their press release is that this technology does not only works outdoors, it doesn't work indoors or in cars, which is a substantial limitation. But how does it work in like backyards with cinder block walls? How about fencing? How about any kinds of structures between buildings?
Ms. Tosher, your time has expired.
Okay.
Thank you. Anne-Marie Nee is not available, so we'll move on to Thomas Connor.
Hello?
Go ahead, Mr. Connor. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here in opposition to ShotSpotter and limiting us to 2 minutes each while giving the PPD 40. Couldn't you have let us have an advocate to speak in equality in the council chambers? But trimming my notes, ShotSpotter analyst Paul Green testified under oath that their marketing claims, which the PPD relies on, were not backed by data. From independent scientific research, however, from Doucette et al., quote, ShotSpotter technology has no significant impact on firearm-related homicides or arrest outcomes. Likewise, Mayer and Blackburn, GDT, gunshot detection technology, has no impact on the level of reported gun crimes. Goldenberg et al. On how well GDT works to save gunshot victims. There's no differences in patient outcomes due to GDT. And Ratcliffe et al. Found that introducing acoustic gunshot detection systems led to a massive increase in unfounded incidents, but no significant increase in founded incidents, both relative to controls. And I'd like to dwell on that last point briefly, as well as in the case of Michael Williams, where police were sent a mile away from where ShotSpotter eventually determined a gunshot had occurred. I've lived in Pasadena for a while now, but at one time I lived in Cleveland, Ohio. In 2014, there was someone else who lived in Cleveland, a kid. One gray Sunday in November, he went to the park, the one across the street from his elementary school. The park with a sign, the long gone community policing program, the one that had been cut to pay for new police weapons and equipment. Someone that they called the cops, incorrectly saying he had a gun.
30 seconds.
Cop, told by dispatch that this was a code 1, showed up hot. And before their car came to a stop, they had shot poor young Tamir Rice dead. I understand that you want to do everything you can to protect the people of this city. But that protection goes two ways. And a system that wrongfully tells police that someone is shooting a gun is going to lead to them showing up hot and killing an innocent citizen who is just trying to be alive. Please do not bring this flawed technology into our city.
Thank you. Anne Marie Nee is still not in the meeting. Neither is Kate Dolan Mayer. I'll call their names one more time. We'll move on to Vincent DiStefano, followed by Heavenly Hughes. Mr. DiStefano?
Thank you, council members. I'd like to address something that Councilman Hampton asked my partner at Pasadena Private Security and CCOP, Chris Ockerhauser, at the public safety meeting. He said, Ms. Ockerhauser, if you didn't use this technology, which technology would you use? Ronald Reagan once said that the answers to complex issues are never easy.
I'm sorry, that was not my statement. My question to Mrs. Okerhauser was, could you bring us a list of technologies that
Fair enough, Councilman.
So
Hampton.
I just asked for a list of things, so I think I just want to make sure.
That's quite right, and I stand corrected. My point here is that the assumption that there is a technological fix is what Ronald Reagan said when there are answers are never easy, but we can make them simple. My heart goes out to the communities that are most affected by the violence. But I think assuming that a system can solve it, rather than the long process that Councilman Kennedy, I think, correctly addressed at that same public safety meeting about engagement to reduce the temperature of the city, is a dramatically better use of our precious funds during a once-in-a-lifetime health crisis and a homeless crisis that is at epic proportions. The money could be better spent elsewhere, regardless of where it comes from. Thank you very much.
Before we move to the next speaker, let me just, given the hour and we still have closed session, we're going to move the PPR. So any member of the public, and there have been questions, or I'm sorry, cards submitted for the PPR. So members of the public should know that the PPR will be moved off to our next agenda on the city council, as will the leaf blower ordinance, in consultation with Ms. Williams and others, and the city manager. Will put the leaf blower ordinance under old business.
So leaf blowers will come back on September 18th under old business. October, I keep saying September.
So members of the public shouldn't understand, who are interested in either one of those subjects, that they'll come back at our next meeting under old, well, the leaf blower under old business, the PPR, as it appears today. Thank you.
So we'll move on to Heavenly Hughes, followed by Carolyn Galoni. Ms. Hughes, can you unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. 2 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Heavenly Hughes. I'm the co-founder of My Tribe Rise. I would like to thank Kat from showing up for racial justice, and I echo all the statements regarding this shot spotter stated thus far. Steve Mermel and Chief Perez are retiring due to at a time when the community is disgusted by their lack of action of public safety. But now we hear them recommending a shot spotter that the community is not in agreement with. I would like to know, has the Pasadena police went out and canvassed the community and asked them, do we want that in our community? Do we see a need for it? I would also like to know exactly what areas will you all target or place these shot spotters? And from listening, it seems like those few seconds of in the presentation of showing that a few shots was fired in this area for $640,000, it just doesn't add up. It seems like you all need to do more community engagement, because you guys are saying that the community might not call in and that the community don't know exactly what's going on, but the community does call in. The community is concerned about the public safety. And the problem is that in certain areas, you guys just don't respond.
25 seconds.
I'm also wondering, will these shot spotters help in a situation like in the murder of Anthony McLean? Will it let us know about those shots being fired and be able to collect evidence and be able to get witnesses and be able to prosecute people? Because that's the type of public safety that the community has been addressing, and the city council continues to not hold police accountable, continues to not respond to what the community
Ms.
is
Hughes,
talking about.
your time has expired.
I'm sorry?
Your time has expired.
Thank you, city council.
Thank you. Carolyn Galoni. We have Larry Deadario, who's not checked in, and Sarah Brewer Boland, who's not checked in. And so we can go to Mohammed Tosher after Carolyn Galoni. Ms. Galoni,
Hi.
2 minutes.
Yes,
Go
hi.
ahead, starting now.
Okay. I just want to say there have been some wonderful speakers to touch on a lot of the points that I would like to make. I honestly don't know how ShotSpotter really came to the attention or the desire of PPD, but if it is because if you are like constantly, as any good organization would, seeking to increase public safety and reduce crime, then please go and seek those programs that are proven to do this, to increase public safety and decrease crime. Technology does neither of those things. Technology, they can capture shots, but that's not decreasing crime or improving safety. There are programs throughout Los Angeles that do this, that have a proven record. And we can also do this through prevention, through jobs, housing, and other prevention programs. It doesn't make sense to go to a technology when what we're trying to do is make our communities better, to make things more safe. And the way to do that is through reducing stress, through reducing harm to our communities, and uplifting our communities. I'm not surprised that the police chief is recommending this. I don't think over-policing is our police chief's concern. He's not even concerned about the numerous complaints that have come out of Northwest Pasadena about over-policing, that the community talks about this.
30
about
seconds.
The and the deaths of people in there. I also wanted to touch base on the fact that we heard this long presentation by someone that's supporting ShotSpotter, but we didn't hear a long presentation by people who are arguing against it. You can't just have one biased presentation and make a decision. Then you already made a decision by only having one presenter. Also, Steve Mermel says, we all get a gunshot, and now this all it does is get gunshots, and then we know where to go. But
Ms. Galoni, your time has expired. Can you wrap up?
Will arrive with their guns blazing to go. We've already killed Black men in Pasadena. We don't need them to go after with their guns blazing when it's a backfire, or even when there's a shot fired.
Ms. Galoni, thank you. Mohammed Tajsar, followed by Mike Katz-Lakabe. Mr. Tajsar?
Okay, thank you. Just a quick point, Mr. DeStefano can take Mr. Deodario's statement. My name is Mohammed Tadsar. I'm a District 1 resident, and I represent the ACLU of Southern California. So this weekend, I submitted a letter on behalf of 9 different organizations, strongly urging this body not to acquire ShotSpotter. I want to make 2 quick points, one procedural and one substantive. The city manager, Mr. Grisalve's presentations were grossly misleading, right? I work at the ACLU. There was no ACLU study or support for this technology. There are many other examples of misstatements in the presentation. It just goes to show that this council really needs to hear from opposing voices to police department acquisitions. You have experts in the community who study these items, who oppose them, who never have anything more than 2 minutes to share and discuss what they learned, right? So beyond this item, I urge you, I'm pleading with you to agendize community members in these discussions that are independent of staff, independent of the PD, who can provide you with a diversity of viewpoints, right? On substantively, I'll be really frank, council members, this proposed acquisition is extraordinarily troubling, right? It's an exercise in hubris and disregard for the community. Hubris because it suggests that somehow, somewhere, our city is going to be different from the experience of millions of people across the country who have had to live through the deployment of ShotSpotter, an experience which teaches us that the technology is unreliable, racially discriminatory, and creates rather than resolves dangerous encounters in our city, right? You don't have to believe me, just Google it, right? That's my message, Google it, right? You'll see that the only entities who have anything positive to say about ShotSpotter are the companies, is the company itself, the people the company pays, and the police departments who like shiny new toys, right? Further,
30
why do we
seconds.
think we can't use 600 grand to actually support people's lives? There are no inspector generals that say it's bad to provide more counseling to young people. No inspector generals that say after school programs are a waste of money. There are no academics that say people who experience homelessness shouldn't get food or shelter. And yet here we are asking for 640 grand to adopt a controversial, problematic, and harmful surveillance technology. What are we doing here, right? Join us, join the ACLU, CCOP, My Tribe Rise, Indivisible, the IMA, the NAACP, POP, Pasadena Privacy for All, Surge, and a bunch of other community members, and show some courage. Say no, say no, we don't need this.
Mr.
Thank you.
Tsar, thank you. Mike Katz-Lacabe, followed by Adriana Batista, followed by Chris Ogershauser.
Good evening. My name is Mike Katz-Lacabe with the Center for Human Rights and Privacy. I think it was great that the City Council took additional time to allow for more research on the contract. However, it's unclear where the additional data came from, but it appears to have been directly from ShotSpotter. The presentation claims that ShotSpotter improves the reporting of shooting incidents and reduces the number of reported shootings. Where is the data that supports those claims? ShotSpotter is the perfect tool that garners the support of police and elected officials. Police support it because it ensures that they will always have an argument for additional staffing as they respond to an influx of alerts from ShotSpotter where no evidence of a shooting is found. In addition, elected officials get the benefit of appearing to do something about crime without any real independent evidence that the technology is effective. A few years ago, Oakland Police Chief Sean Went wanted to cancel the contract with ShotSpotter because of its ineffectiveness, but was overruled by the City Council. Charlotte-Mecklenburg is one of a number of cities that has ended its contract because the system didn't help them make arrests or identify crime victims. People seem surprised that Chicago reviewed the ShotSpotter contract despite a lack of evidence that was effective. In fact, the city of San Pablo recently renewed its contract with ShotSpotter despite a consistent increase in ShotSpotter activations, which, if ShotSpotter is accurate, means that gunfire has increased 66% from 2016 to 2020 while ShotSpotter has been there. It's not surprising that police departments using ShotSpotter have positive views of ShotSpotter because it's mostly based on anecdote. One should note, too, that ShotSpotter is a funder of New York University's policing project and take that into consideration.
30 seconds.
Your time, I urge you to vote no on this item.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Adriana Batista, followed by Chris Ogershauser, followed by Florence Anang. Ms. Batista, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
The staff report is signed off by Chief Perez. We all know Perez will say whatever is needed to get what he wants, even in spite of the facts. Why are we listening to Perez and the salespeople who have clearly won over PPD staff, including Mr. Grassoff, over the advice of a client's tried and true and unsatisfied reviews? But Chicago Police Department and the ACLU, Grassoff is trying to sell this faulty system. Meanwhile, Chicago PD is warning police departments around the nation of this fraudulent technology. Also, you want to increase PPD's response time to shooting alerts. You need to evaluate if the staff is even prepared to handle that. With the shootings and killings of Anthony McLean, Kendrick McDade, Maurice Clark, Leroy Barnes, and killing of J.R. Thomas, we can see that PPD still has an unaddressed history of addressing false reports and even calls for help with fatal violence. As you could see from Mr. Grassoff's report, The area they are targeting is Northwest Pasadena, where many residents are people of color who are already disproportionately pulled over and targeted by police. City Council, you have no problem approving technology when you pay more attention to the salespeople, who, by the way, were not even done in an open proposal.
30
A simple
seconds.
online showed me that there are definitely competitors. However, the same concern remains. This could be giving PPD a blank check to steal more lives. There needs to be a more thorough investigation into Pasadena PD's illegal sales of firearms to the community. Lieutenant Vaskin Gordikian was sentenced for illegally selling 108 guns. As a high-ranking lieutenant, there must have been more people working with him, and it's reflective of a company culture. So how many cops did it take to let this happen? And how can we be sure illegal gun sales by PPD aren't occurring anymore?
Ms. Batista, your time has expired.
They somehow know there are hundreds of guns still available to be seized.
Thank you. Chris Okershauser, followed by Florence Anong, followed by Anne Marie Nee, who just checked into the meeting. Ms. Okershauser?
Yes, hello, good evening.
Go ahead.
I'd like to agree with the previous speakers who have made the comments about numerous analyses of the ShotSpotters technology have called into question its effectiveness. Also, the deployment of ShotSpotters has led to harms in the communities it was supposed to help. And also the position that ShotSpotters will increase presence of police in Northwest Pasadena, already over-policed and ineffectively served. It will result in more risks, contacts, detention, seizures, and arrests, none of which will effectively deter violence in the area. Lastly, I'd like to make note of a position that the ACLU National has made about gunshot detectors like ShotSpotter, in which they say, while gunshot detectors have a useful law enforcement application, concerns arise from what the devices actually are, microphones that can be used to listen in on a community remotely. If limited solely to detecting and reporting on the locations of gunshots, the devices are not problematic. However, if these secretly operated microphones can be remotely activated and used to listen in on communities in which they are placed, they can represent another form of general mass surveillance.
30 seconds.
Only with strict limitations and auditing can we be sure this technology is not abused, and such oversight commonly does not exist. And I would suggest that the level of community trust, as expressed in the previous speaker, and noting both the Anthony McLean and the meeting of Chris Malou show how much trust I think that the community has, that the police department and the city have their best interest at heart.
Ms. Okershauser, thank you. Florence Anong, followed by Anne Marie Nee, followed by Hiram Cormier Jr. Ms. Anong, *6 to unmute. There you go. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. A spokesperson for the LAPD said the technology has also been used by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department in the City of Industry, Linwood, and Willowbrook area, but is not currently in use in part because of finances. It's going to cost us a lot of money, and that's something we have to address. Notice none of those areas said Compton or Inglewood or any of the other areas, because all of those communities rejected it absolutely when the council came to the community and they said no. But let's go back. Can ShotSpotter stop the deaths that happened at the beginning of this year? The 3 Hispanic men that died, the young boy that was fatally hurt? Could it stop? No. But what it could do was to maybe help the police get there quickly and find the people. So what it's really doing is really making it look good for the police. So they can say, yes, we caught the person maybe in one day, caught the person at the crime. That's excellent, but the death still happened. Number three for me is the listening device. It's a listening device, everybody. It listens to inside the community. And just like in court cases, some of the court cases that the police tried to put in had to be thrown out because a voice was heard and a name was spoken of and the police wanted to use it. So 24 hours a day, this technology is being used all over. Now, number four,
30
is we know
seconds.
what technology can do. Technology failed in us today with Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp going down for over 6 hours. So if technology goes down for showstopper, what do the police do? Do they stop becoming police? Or do they, if there's shots fired, they still have to go out there and kind of do their job, which they do their job. And my last point is that I suggest that if this is supposed to happen in the Northwest area, why doesn't every council member say, you know what, I'll put my money where my mouth is and I will vote for this and we'll have it in all of the districts for 1 year and let's see
Ms.
if we can
Anang.
listen to the white areas, the Asian areas, and all of the other areas while we're listening to the black and brown areas. So I think that might be a fair thing.
Ms. Anang, your time has expired.
$144,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne-Marie Nee, followed by Hiram Cormier Jr., followed by Michelle White. Ms. Nee, go ahead. 2
Hello,
minutes.
thank you very much for this opportunity to talk. I want to thank my fellow neighbors who informed themselves and brought their, in many cases, informed expertise to the group. The gentleman who spoke from the ACLU, I thank you very much. I think you made a very important point that if we really wanted to know if this was the right way to go, we could just read the reviews, the tried and tested reviews going back years to show that other communities have found this to not be a helpful resource, a helpful tool when it comes to actually improving public safety. And as a neighbor, it means a lot to me to look at the data, to learn from other communities what actually improves public safety. Where should we be investing our money to improve public safety? And over-policing, having a higher police presence is going to do the opposite. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you. Hiram Cormier Jr., followed by Michelle White.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Thank you. Two minutes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I speak on behalf of myself and only myself, but yo, this is the most, out of all the meetings I've been to, this has been the most anti-Black out of all of them, and all of them are. But somebody said that this is only a listening device. It's not only a listening device. It's a criminalization device. It's a device to put someone in jail. I don't understand how Vermel could sit up here and say that it only tells them where the shooting is happening and the direction that it's giving that the shooting is occurring in. That's not true. First of all, you know that the cops will show up and they will arrest anybody. They do not give a fuck who they get as long as they get someone. This shit is so dangerous. Somebody talked about how this was basically a similar device that got Samir Rice killed. I'm sure there's other shootings that have occurred, police shootings that have happened as a result of this. It gives out wrong information. If I go outside and drop a fucking pan, all of a sudden there could be a police presence. That is some bullshit. It doesn't work. As other callers have noted, bro, like, it's not reliable. If you look at independent studies, actual independent studies, everybody's saying it doesn't fucking work. It should tell you something that out of all the fucking cities in LA.
Mr. Cormier, I'm going to ask you to please be more respectful as you address the council and the community.
I'm going to ask you to be more respectful of our lives and not put this in our communities so that people can get life sentences off of this. I know people from Pasadena who are serving life over some shit like this. Please stop it. We do not want this.
Please
we don't want it
complete your comments,
Northwest.
Mr.
We don't
Cormier.
want it nowhere else. Fuck you, nigga. Punk ass motherfucker, man. Y'all some bitch.
Michelle White. Michelle, can you unmute? There you
How
go.
about now?
Oh, we got it. Thank you. Go. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. I live in District 5, a half a block from Villa Park, and in 91101. This is an area where we've had shots fired in the past, and we're the most over-policed area in the city. And I didn't hear any need for the shot spotter, because in our community, when shots go out, we call the police, and the police are there in very short order. There's no question about that. Now, that may be because we're so over-policed and they're right there anyway, but we don't need to have another way of finding out that a shot has been fired, because it's very clear, and both the police and the community know right away, and it's called in. I'm confused by something that happened about 3 years ago when it was this shot spotter was considered for the first time. My remembrance was that Chief Perez was very complimentary of how many neighbors call in. If that's the case, I don't see the need for shot spotters. So
30 seconds.
one thing. Okay, I'm wondering what happened with the Oversight Commission. Did they consider this at all? And we have a policy of competitive bidding. I don't know why this is not part of that process. And it seems to me that a 3-year test period is incredibly long. We should do something about, if we're going to do this, we should make it a much shorter period of time. We've raised a lot of questions about this use of software, and I think more time needs to be put into actually checking out the efficacy and reliability of this product. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't see Kate Dolan-Mayer or Larry D'Addario or Sarah Brewer-Bolin. Who is? Larry? Larry D'Addario? Go ahead. Mr. D'Addario, could you unmute and then you could start your public comment?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. 2 minutes. Go
Thank
ahead.
you very much. I'd just like to make a couple of procedural points. First, contrary to the way this item is worded on the agenda, the council members who are not at the Public Safety Committee, 5 of you, should know that this does not come to the council as a recommendation of the Public Safety Committee. It is a proposal by the police department. It was discussed by the committee at their September 23rd meeting. After a presentation by the police department, there was a consensus of the committee that the proposal be moved forward to the full council, and so you have it before you. But there was never a motion, much less a vote, to the effect that approval by the council is recommended by the committee. I wouldn't want the council to think that this matter has been thoroughly vetted by the committee. It need not be subject to high scrutiny by the council. Such scrutiny is needed by the full council, and the public expects it. Secondly, you cannot possibly approve the proposed purchase today because it has not been through the competitive bidding process required by the city charter. The agenda says, quote, competitive bidding is not required pursuant to city charter section 1002F for contracts for professional and unique services, but that statement is completely wrong. The proposed contract is neither for professional services, nor is it a service unique to Pasadena, so the exemption does not apply, nor do any of the other exemptions listed in section 1002 apply. There's a statement in the staff report that says, quote, staff is not aware of any other vendor providing this service, unquote, but their lack of awareness does not satisfy the requirement. In fact, there are multiple other companies who have gunshot detection systems and who are potential bidders on a contract like this.
20 seconds.
The proposal also requests that the council grant an exemption to the competitive selection process under the power given to it by Municipal Code Section 4.08.049B. It seems to me that that section of the code should be invalid because it effectively amends the city charter without a vote of the people. Nevertheless, if it happens to be valid, it still requires the council to find that a sole source contract with ShotSpotter is in the quote, best interests of the city, unquote. You cannot, in good conscience, make such a finding in view of the existence of other potential bidders and in view of the city's lack of due diligence. in
Mr.
evaluating the
Dario,
effectiveness.
your time has expired.
Okay, therefore you cannot approve the purchase until the competitive bidding process has played out and until you know a lot more about what you are buying. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes public comment on this item.
Thank you. In terms of, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Kennedy, you're in the queue, so we'll let you ask your questions and make any comments. Then I have some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, about 4 or 5 years ago, at the urging of someone who had much more knowledge about this technology than I did at the time, I brought this matter to the fore, and the city manager and police staff reviewed it. And they did not recommend going forward with it. I thought I had done what I needed to do as a responsible member of the city council, seeking innovative ways to address crime. City manager at that time was, if I have this correctly, was Steve Mermel. The police chief may have been a different person, but the outcome was this was not a type of technology that we needed for Pasadena. So you may ask the question, what has happened? What has happened is that there's been an uptick in gun-related violence in our community, and we all have a sense of the following. We've got to do something to arrest the violence and the use of firearms in our community. But I'm still unconvinced that spot shotter is the right technology. Even with the answers in the articulate presentation by Lieutenant Grisafi doing his job. So, Charlotte, North Carolina, city of about 800,000 in the city, the area, the metropolitan area, well over 1 million, employed this technology and decided that there was a better use of funds. City that's almost 10 times, but at least 9 times larger than the city of Pasadena, with 4 or 5 Fortune 500 companies. And they simply said, it's not for us. They've tried it out. Now, in Southern California, ladies and gentlemen, 87 cities with police departments or contracted relationships with other agencies to provide police services. They've said no. They said no, not for us. Now, why? Because the technology itself may do what it purports to do, say it's going to do, and that is identify within a 82-foot radius a location of where the shot was fired. But even with that data, it has been extremely difficult for law enforcement to do their job. Now, law enforcement is right before.
Mr. Kennedy, if I can just, we were still in the question asking phase, and so, you know, I don't want to interrupt you, but if you have,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fair, Mayor. That's fair. I have some questions then.
Thank you.
Has the
Mayor.
technology, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mayor, I just think that if Councilmember Kennedy is a statement, you know, to not prolong the meeting and have come back again, it's probably best for him to finish his statement.
Go ahead.